Welcome to the OBR streaming network. This is the React. My name is Brad Ward. The man next to me is the always fantastic Pete Smith, the one and only. What's going on, Pete?
We are a day away from doing stuff with other teams and a couple days away from preseason, and we have two healthy quarterbacks right now. So that's where we're at.
Three.
Well, I mean, Shedeur is fully participating. I'd be curious to know how he feels, but yeah, I guess three if we count if we count the one Pro Bowler on the roster.
Yep. Who would have thought the return of Snoop Huntley in this preseason?
They need a body. So yeah, and he qualifies. Pro Bowl body.
He does qualify. People making way too big a deal out of this thing. It's pretty crazy. We'll talk about it all though. Huge storm. Hope you're okay, Chef. Hang in there, buddy. Ty Sox is locked in. Good to see you guys in the chat. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. We've got a number of videos for you tonight. Some entertaining stuff been going on the past few days with the quarterback. Shenanigans with the hamstring, stuff going on, and then Shedeur getting his chance now. So reports are he will start Friday, which makes sense. And do you expect him to participate heavily in the joint practice on Wednesday?
Difficult to tell, honestly. I mean, it sort of depends how they view the other guys. If they do some 7-on-7 stuff, I could see a scenario where Kenny Pickett and potentially Dylan Gabriel participate. If it's heavy team and a lot of competition stuff, then he's going to have to, because they're, as much as I think it's reasonable for them to really use this as an opportunity to just lean into Joe Flacco. I think they could be a little bit reasonable with that. Get Shedeur some reps with that offense in particular.
Yeah.
And then let him sort of use this as a wave to go into the preseason. I'm more interested to see how they handle the preseason, because if it's up to me, and if the Browns are committed to the idea that Pickett and Gabriel are not going to participate in that game, short of an injury or some major concern, I'd give Shedeur the whole game. Because I understand Tyler Huntley's desire to be able to play and work and all those stuff. But even for him, he's got to have been here 20 minutes. And yes, some of the offense is similar, and it's not a huge change, but it is a little bit different. You haven't thrown to these guys and everything. This is the ideal scenario to just let Shedeur get a ton of reps, a ton of work. People are going to overreact no matter what, but he's interested in doing the work. He's not afraid of it. And just let him figure it out. Granted, I mean, preseason's not, preseason's a little bit neutered in terms of what you're facing, but it's an opportunity for him to showcase his talent and maybe show something that gets the team excited about his progress. Just keep growing.
Yeah, I think I would take like an open-ended approach to it. Like if he's handling it well into the second half, let him go as long as he wants. But like if he starts to take a beating or whatever, then you have Huntley there, maybe.
Right.
He's
the fail-safe. Like that is why he's there. But like, be smart, obviously, and I hope Shedeur's not going in there trying to be like a hero in terms of playing through stupid pain or anything. But like, it's a great opportunity for him to get reps. This is somebody they want to see, and Huntley's temporary. I mean, he may be gone in a couple days if those other guys are suddenly back. So
sure,
lean into it. And my approach is, if all these guys were healthy, Joe Flacco should not play in any preseason games. I don't need to see Kenny Pickett in the preseason. I'm entirely interested in seeing the two rookies go at it and see what happens for them. That's for me. I'd give them all three. I'd give them the 3 games and let them have at it.
Yeah, correct. The only thing I would worry about is, just him late in the game, 3rd string, 4th string offensive line out there. I don't want, you know what I mean? I just don't want him taking a beating, relentlessly. So as long as he's upright and making plays, let him play as long as he can. Play the whole game if you want.
Well, hopefully he's not taking a beating. Hopefully he is being decisive, getting the ball out, and doing the things that he needs to do to take that next step. But that's certainly a possibility that he's going to get hit and play real football. So I agree. Tyler Huntley should be the fail-safe.
Yeah. All right. You're watching the React. Good to see you guys here. Thanks again. Thanks for Motorsports for just here to check on the audio. Thank you. We've got a couple clips here. They're not great. They're kind of infuriating at times, but that's what we do here. So we're going to react to this first one. Ryder talking about his feelings about Dylan Gabriel on the morning show, 92.3 The Fan. Steve Kramer asks real quickly, what's going on with Mike Hall? He's still rehabbing.
Yeah, continuing to work back, make sure they're content with his knee, make sure they're content with the play strength. It's as simple as that. And they've got enough guys that they're content to let hit rest. I think I'm a little surprised he's not back, but I don't think that's a case of he's necessarily had a setback or it's an injury deal. I think it's more of they want to make sure that he's that this isn't going to be something that comes up again or nags him. So, but we'll see. Hopefully, shortly, because obviously you need to get him going to get him ready for the season. But their vision for him is the season rather than necessarily training camp.
Okay. Let's go back. We're gonna watch this clip here.
Dylan Gabriel.
He's not good. He's not an NFL quarterback, not right now. Jeez. And the fact they keep running him out there for first team reps, and part of it I get because Kenny Pickett's banged up with a hamstring injury, so there's not a lot he can do. But this goes back. They have been putting him out there first with the 11-on-11 going back to the offseason program. They're cramming this guy down our throats, and it's not good. It's not a height thing. It's not personal. He's rolling out and he can't hit guys that are wide open. He is not all that great at times during the warm-up periods. He's pretty good during 7-on-7 when there's no offensive and defensive lines, but he's just not a good quarterback. And he's a 3rd-round pick. And I talked extensively yesterday, as you mentioned, on my show with Nick Padone. The problem that I have right now is that the Browns are forcing me to look at a 3rd-round pick who has no business being in contention to start a football game this year. They're forcing me to evaluate him like he is a 1st-round pick and like he is a starting quarterback in the NFL. And that's not fair to Dylan. You're putting that kid in a really, really bad spot. Dylan Gabriel should be a developmental player, just like you have, as an organization, made the decision to have Shedeur Sanders be a developmental player. But giving him first-team reps on a consistent basis is ridiculous. He is not a starting quarterback. Not yet. Maybe someday he'll develop into Colt McCoy and be one of those, guys that can bounce around the league and be a backup or whatever. But, it's just god-awful when he's on the field. It's not good. And, at times I feel like he brings the practice to a screeching halt when he's doing the 11-on-11 because the ball doesn't move.
All right. Way overreaction there. He had 2 bad days. before his hamstring injury. He had 2 bad days. I was there one day where he started off really poorly, and I was like, "Yeah," but then he came on strong at the end. He's just making wild, sweeping comments about a kid that's still learning everything. What are your thoughts here, Pete?
Well, the whole thing was coming into the season. All I heard was the Browns need to find out what they have in these 2 rookie quarterbacks. And then the Browns proceed to try to find out what they have in these 2 rookie quarterbacks. And now we're pissed that they're finding out what they have in these 2 rookie quarterbacks. Like Dylan Gabriel is, whether he's good, bad, or ugly, somewhere in the middle of all of that, all he's doing is showing that the Browns are going to draft a quarterback next year. Like, and that's fine. And I'd say the same thing with Shedeur Sanders. It's like, what I'm finding out is they're not going to be good enough, fast enough to stop the Browns from drafting a quarterback next year. That does not mean they will never be good. It just means that
you don't think that that's the case for Shedeur either.
I think the reality. Look, I'm not going to bury them before they're dead, and maybe someone will surprise me and be great. And Friday could be the start of that for Shedeur Sanders. But ultimately, I just think we're going to find ourselves in a situation where we're like, I'm listening to like the most insane arguments and conspiracies over these 2 quarterbacks, the 3rd and 5th round pick. Like their 3rd and 5th round picks, like your expectation for them was to come in and be great immediately, which is the only way. Basically the only way. There are only 2 scenarios where the Browns don't draft a quarterback next year. One, they win too many games. I don't foresee that being a threat. Or 2, one of these quarterbacks is so good that they're like offensive rookie of the year conversation. I do not see that happening at this point either. Now, things could change. There's still plenty of time, but like, that's what I'm learning. Nevertheless, what is the answer here, that the Browns should just like not rep them or not rep them with the ones? Like, we're sitting here, and I don't know if Ryder is saying this necessarily, but you've got people going, "Oh, Shedeur needs to rep with the ones." Like, welcome to developing a quarterback. Like, it is not necessarily pretty. You're not, I think we're past the point where we're going to luck into Russell Wilson. You know what I mean? I think neither one of these guys is going to Jaden Daniels this season. But like, they've got to work and they've got to continue to get reps. And if Shedeur is able to, get some momentum going, hopefully, he's going to get more reps and opportunities with the ones as he gets up to speed and does these other things. But like, this is the deal. Joe Flacco does not need a ton of reps. They don't want to overwork him. Kenny Pickett cannot do team at the moment. So who are you left with? Dylan Gabriel, who the Browns really like from a knowledge and processing and understanding what's happening. I am concerned with the accuracy stuff because if you're going to be short and you're going to be overaged as he is, you've got to be right on a lot of things. Now, I'm not going to write him off, but like, that is at least concerning. But again, that just drives me to the conclusion of, okay, we're going to be in the market for a quarterback next year, as opposed to this is a travesty against football that the Browns are trying to develop the quarterback. Because if Dylan Gabriel suddenly clicks and figures it out, everybody's going to be happy that he did this way. But like, if in a year, the Browns have a first-round pick, Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, and that's your quarterback room, like, you're going to continue to see these guys work, and hopefully one of them is going to emerge as a bona fide starter. But like, so I don't get all that upset about it. The other thing I would just simply point out, and it sounds like Dylan Gabriel is making mistakes that are not caused by the defense, but the defense is pretty good as well. But I want to see them work their way through it. But like, until Shedeur is ready to put himself in position, and maybe Wednesday in particular is going to start the process of him getting where they want him to be, or Kenny Pickett gets healthy. Somebody's got to get those reps. I want to see those guys get work. I want to see what ultimately they can do with this thing. I want to see Kevin Stefanski. I want to see Tommy Rees. I want to see Bill Musgrave coach these guys up and see if they can't get growth. because that's what's going to matter. And I suspect some level of this is, if you're the organization as a whole, like, and specifically ownership, you're sort of evaluating like, what are they getting out of these guys? And how much of that is a good process that they're going to want to keep in place to do this next year with much higher stakes. So I have no problem with it. I hear a lot about this, like that, like they're forcing Dylan Gabriel on the fan base or something, as if Dylan Gabriel is some threat to start right now.
Well, I think that what people get upset about is they see them bringing Shedeur along slowly, and he's playing well. And then you look over at Gabriel, who they seem to be throwing more at, obviously, and giving him reps with the ones, and he's struggling. And they just are like, why is this happening? But we've discussed that, he was ahead of him. And when he came in, in the process or whatever, my whole thing is like, we've heard Stefanski say, his height doesn't show up on the film. 2 days at camp, his height showed up at camp. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm not surprised by that, but yeah. But like, and then there's some element of this. And look, I want Shedeur to be successful. I want him to do good things, but like, I just go back and like, and I still like DTR. I know a lot of people hate him, but DTR tap danced all over third and even second team guys in preseason. And then when he got in with the ones, it wasn't pretty, other than, the game-winning drive against the Steelers and then some of that Broncos game. Like, there is an element where I think people aren't appreciating just how much better. Well, I mean, let's make it simple. Myles Garrett versus Joe Tryon.
Yeah.
Or, Malik Collins versus, Aiden Huntington right now. Like, that's a major step up in competition. Certainly even more, although, Greg Newsom's nursing his shoulder. Hopefully he's going to be back for this. Denzel Ward versus, Dom Jones. Like, that's a massive climb up in competition. Now, I'm hoping that Shedeur, one, does well Wednesday and then does really well on Friday, and then he can start doing those things. But I suspect when he does get in with the ones, he's going to have his share of struggles as well, because all the quarterbacks are having their struggles right now. Because one, the Browns don't have a star-studded offense, and two, their defense is pretty good. So, I have no problem with people sort of hoping that Shedeur succeeds. Where you lose me is when it becomes a conspiracy that they're somehow wanting him to fail by making him have success over and over and over again, and Shedeur seemingly being excited about his prospects. So hopefully, and look, if the second Shedeur starts catching up, hopefully again this week, if he's continuing to do things well and Dylan Gabriel's struggling, this is going to be really simple. He's going to displace him and move ahead, which is how it should go. So, if we're doing this in, another 3 weeks or something, and we're still doing it like this, then, and Gabriel has not improved and Shedeur's clearly past him, then I think that there's a conversation. But right now, if you're sitting there going, I'm tired of watching Dylan Gabriel suck against the ones, and Shedeur continues to play well and do those things and keep progressing in the way they seem to want, which, I when I listen to Shedeur, he keeps talking about all the things he feels like he's improving with, and every time he's asked, it starts with mentally, which good. So hopefully, if things continue like this, Shedeur will naturally pass him by, and we'll see where we end up from there. And if that's where I'm sort of bummed that Dylan Gabriel cannot play in the preseason, or seemingly is going to be held out of that first preseason game, because I'd like to see them play head to head. Not necessarily that I want to sit there and go, take too much out of it, but I'd like to see just process standpoint, like how it looks comparatively, because I suspect Dylan Gabriel is doing certain things at a much faster clip than Shedeur is, but I want to see what Shedeur does.
Yeah. I think that, this is a huge opportunity for Shedeur, right? The next couple days here. to kind of do what everybody's been calling for, and him to step into or ahead of Gabriel. He certainly has kind of bided his time and, taken this slowly, which I think is the right way to handle him to this point. But like, this is going to be a step up in competition. And if he handles it really well, then he should take that step forward. You know what I mean? So, and I hope he does. But this is another clip here from same show, Guys in the Morning, and calling the way that the Brown. I'll just let them talk for themselves.
Total mess. And I don't think anybody who follows the league would look up and down rosters, look up and down any way, best practices, any element of a good organization. This is nonsensical what they have trotted out here in training camp. Can we be honest? Does anybody really disagree?
No, I don't disagree.
I mean, and I've seen, because this is the nice time of the year, right? When the national guys come in and go to every single camp.
Wait, what is nonsensical about this?
I assume he's referencing just the quarterbacks. And then here again, like, we come in. So do you want them to have a competition or not? Because this is what it looks like. Do you want to evaluate these rookies or not? Because this same Anthony Lima, I've heard him say this, the Browns need to find what they have in these rookies. And it has on multiple occasions treated the Browns like a charity, where it's just give these guys games as opposed to make them earn it, go out and do this thing. And even at one point was suggesting that starting Joe Flacco is a waste of time. So to me, that is nonsensical. Like, I want, again, develop these guys, figure it out, get them. You're coaching them. Like, this is what it looks like when you have this. The Browns quarterback situation is not good. We knew this going in, and like, you're surprised. Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dylan Gabriel, and Shedeur Sanders was your quarterback depth chart. They've got to figure this out. Now, obviously, it doesn't look great when you have, two guys with hamstring injuries and Shedeur having missed a practice with the arm soreness to the point where you have to bring in Tyler Huntley. But like, this is what it looks like when you try to do this thing. If your argument is the Browns should just roll out Joe Flacco with the ones all the time, or just Flacco and Pickett, like, then you're doing the disservice that you're saying you wanted them to do, which is develop these rookies, find out what they have. They have to find out what these rookies are before they move on to them. They're finding out, and you don't like to return on that, which is fine, but it's giving you a very clear indication of where this thing is going, which is picking a quarterback next April, which is what they need to learn. But let them coach up, let them develop. Like, this is what it goes. So this idea that's nonsensical because you don't sort of like agree with how it's going or whatever. Like, I have no problem with them handling it the way they're doing. I think the problem is that they don't have the guy necessarily. And again, I say this in Shedeur and Dylan Gabriel are not going to be ready fast enough. That doesn't mean they can't be. Like, I could easily, as I sort of wrote when I did my breakdown of Shedeur Sanders, I could see a scenario where if he makes the proper steps, he can be a quality starting quarterback. I also said he could be out of the league in 2 years. Like, that is the disparity there. So they've got to treat him in the correct way to get him where he needs to be in terms of habits and all these other things. And then Dylan Gabriel, I said from the jump, was probably a long-term backup. Nothing so far has changed my mind on any of these things. Let them figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only thing that I would say is a bit unconventional, and I actually think they've been rather efficient with it, but I wonder about when you have to make that, when you have to change the format of this thing, is the 4 quarterbacks, right? And it's kind of taken care of itself this week with the injuries and whatnot. But like, as you proceed, past this game on Friday, wouldn't you naturally, if you didn't have 4 quarterbacks in camp, start to ramp up, your quarterback 1 would be taking the majority of your reps, or is this still too early for that?
Well, as we've talked about before, I thought basically to the first joint practice is when they could sort of, do what they're doing, which is sort of rep a whole bunch of guys. I think from basically after Wednesday, and obviously they're off or light Thursday, and they have the preseason game Friday. I think after that, it's Flacco time.
That's what I think. Yeah.
That it's that at that point we are there in terms of we know who's going to be the starter. That doesn't mean they're not going to rep those other guys. They're not going to continue to work them. But I think this is when we start to make that move. And here's the thing, like if this is indicative of where Dillon Gabriel is right now, then he's answered the question for you. You're not sitting there going, oh man, I have no idea what we have in Dillon Gabriel. We need to get him out there. Like, question answered. Not ready yet.
Yeah. I mean, to expect them to be ready at this point is just unrealistic.
I agree.
I've kind of said, like, this was never really a competition. Like, you had to treat it as such because you wanted these guys to get more reps and see what was there. But, like, the idea that any rookie would be ready by now that wasn't taken, like, in the top 5 of the draft, as a blue chip guy is just kind of crazy, right? So, like, yes, they've gotten them a lot of reps and they're working them, but at some point here, you need to turn and pivot towards the season and monitor them as such as you move forward.
Right. And if well, obviously see what Shedeur does and all this stuff, but like, let's say Shedeur has a really rough day on Wednesday, does pretty well on Friday, but doesn't set the world on fire. Although there will be people who try to DeShone Kizer him because that's just what they're going to do. Then you're going to, if they then pivot and go, Joe Flacco's the starter and we're rolling with him, or we're going to go, and then fans are going to be, oh, okay, good. We've got a semblance of this, as opposed to if they did it the other way and just went hard Joe Flacco, then there would be people talking themselves into this fanciful notion. And look, if one of these guys was so good right out of the gate that they charged and made a great case that they should be the starting quarterback, and they were the Russell Wilson or Jaden Daniels or whatever type player, great, you run with it. But they're not. So now you're getting the answer you need to be able to say, okay, it's time to roll with Joe Flacco. Everybody inside the organization and outside the organization sees it, and now it's time to get serious and get going and prepare for week 1. Like, that should be the feedback you wanted to find out about this. And then you continue to develop these guys, you continue to teach them, and you look at this as a longer term thing, which is what it was always going to likely be. And hopefully they get better. And if Joe Flacco is your starter, then one of these guys is going to be playing scout team going against the first team defense. And if, like, let's say Shedeur Sanders is that guy and he's torching the scout team defense, then it's time to, like, look at him as an option. If the Browns are, like, suddenly falling back in the standings and all that. But like, this is, you're getting the answer you should want in terms of these guys are not there yet. No harm, no foul. We want to develop them, but now we've got the answer. Let's go. Joe Flacco.
Yeah. I mean, this whole, like, mess, this is a mess. This is nonsensical. No, I think that they've actually been efficient with their reps. 4 guys isn't ideal. If I would have had my druthers, I just would have never had Kenny Pickett into camp and just taken the 2 rookies and Flacco and just gone with those 3. And they all would have gotten more reps. But either way, Pickett is whoever they think he is, or whatever, he is whatever he is to them. But it's Flacco for me. And, you continue to learn about these guys, but it's not nonsensical. It's not a waste of time. It's not a mess. What? Because they hurt their hamstrings. It's a mess now. I mean, that's crazy.
Joe Flacco gave you a luxury in that he didn't need a ton of reps. So you leaned into it. You took advantage. You learned a lot. And now you can sort of pivot and go full on Joe Flacco and see where we can go and hopefully win games early enough to make the season interesting. But if it goes bad, as it could, then you can start. Hopefully those guys will be ready enough, but nobody's going to sit. I mean, I won't say nobody. the sane public will sit there and go, Joe Flacco should start the season, and we'll see where we're at in, after 4 weeks, after 6 weeks, whatever, and move on from there.
Yeah. The NFL Network has been here. Aditi was there yesterday. She was on the afternoon show. We've seen Albert Breer come in. When all of these individuals come into every single camp, they put on a very, very positive outlook for all. Diana Rossini, I just heard her on with Bill Simmons, and she kept extolling the virtues of every camp. She did not extol. She said she was not in Cleveland yet, but she extolled the virtues of every camp because this is the time of positivity. I don't know how anybody could be positive about the quarterback situation with the Browns this year and have any other takeaway than positive. This is not the best way to get the best out of any of these quarterbacks.
I am not positive. I don't think it's clean. I wanted to troll you, and I think I did it successfully because, again, you are on record wanting such things. It's Tyler Huntley, who was here last year, and it's an also-ran. But I just think that it's, in some way, Tyler Huntley being signed has helped us draw a couple of conclusions. The first conclusion is that I think Kenny Pickett is still struggling to come back to his full form. I wonder if he's rushing the situation because you go back to Zach's article yesterday when he goes off on like the tidbits of what he saw in camp. I think Kenny Pickett thought he might very well be the starter. Dylan Gabriel, on the other hand, maybe they've been telling Dylan they really like him, and he's just been going out and throwing ducks.
Well, it cuts off. I heard this earlier. The second conclusion he draws is that Tyler Huntley somehow means that Shedeur is not where they need him to be. I don't agree with that part of it. Not that he may be right. I just don't think the Tyler Huntley element is the conclusion you draw from it. The Tyler Huntley element is they need a body. But the fact that they are willing to go with Shedeur Sanders to start, as they should, I can't speak to where the Browns have him mentally, but I don't think they're sitting there going, oh, we're worried about Shedeur Sanders being able to go out and play in the preseason opener. I think they're fine. They need a body. That's all Tyler Huntley is at this point. If not for that, if not for needing a body, why would the Browns sign a fifth quarterback, or sixth in this case if you count Deshaun Watson? They just wouldn't. They'd be down to 3, which is where they need to be. This is simply for getting a body in place. The reason they initially signed Tyler Huntley last year was the same situation. Last year when they signed Tyler Huntley, was certainly earlier in the offseason. Deshaun Watson was still coming back from shoulder surgery. DTR was coming back from his hip surgery and was experiencing, it wasn't clear that it was like responding in the way they needed to. So at the time you had Jameis Winston, an undrafted free agent I can't remember. And so Tyler Huntley was there to make sure they had enough guys to rep. And Tyler Huntley's thing was, I want to go to Cleveland. I want to be coached by Kevin Stefanski. And then ultimately, he was signed to a deal that was designed for him to be cut because that was sort of the deal. He gets cut when he's expected to. He then goes and signs with the Ravens to be the backup for the season. So Tyler
ultimately torches the Browns.
Yeah.
Didn't he come back and torch the Browns with the Dolphins?
I don't know about torch, but yeah.
Yeah, he played good. Better. Torch maybe a little bit out there, but hey, well, I don't know. He's a Pro Bowler. What are you going to do? All right. Here's the other side of the coin. Some logic. Let's get some logic in here. Evan Cohen on the Browns.
Heard Dylan Gabriel Shedeur had that shoulder injury, but I took this yesterday, guys, as actually really good news for Shedeur Sanders, because to me, being named 4th string with all of the reports that we're getting publicly and some of the ones that we've heard privately, he's done pretty well. Mm-hmm. He said all the right things. He's handled himself the right way, as you would expect him to do. And I think this feels, making him the 4th string quarterback, like strategy. Like, in other words, you're going to be the guy at some point, but you're going to earn it, and we're going to put you through the ringer to earn it because we believe in you. Like, I'm.
Why the eye roll, Pete?
Because some intern put together that depth chart. Like, he may functionally be a QB4 at this point. It means nothing. Like, they have a depth chart because they have to. and some intern was forced to put together. I saw a whole bunch of reaction on social media going, "Oh, the Browns are, putting him fourth string. That means that he's potentially going to get cut. This, that, and the other thing." They have to put names on paper in some order. If they were realistic, it would be Joe Flacco 1, Kenny Pickett probably 2 right now, and then Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders on the same line. Like it means nothing, but they have to put out a list, and that's just where he happens to fall on it. And in this case, Dylan Gabriel gets to be ahead essentially because he was picked first. That part of it is utterly meaningless, and I do not think in any way, shape, or form the Browns are sitting there and going, "We're putting you fourth string to send you some kind of message." I am extremely confident in the idea that the Browns are basically saying, "Hey, we wanted you here. We believe in your talent. We want to get the best out of you. Here's how we're going to get it," as opposed to, this idea that, feeding in this whole conspiracy. The Browns picked Shedeur Sanders to then punish him for some crime. I don't know what, that he somehow committed and he offended everybody else. And it's also, by the way, a shot at his father and trying to humble the Colorado program, because that makes sense, because the Browns really need to send a message to Boulder, Colorado. Like, this isn't how any of this stuff works. If the Browns were going to sort of hard-ass Shedeur, they could do it for the speeding tickets, I guess. But ultimately, they brought this kid in, said, "We want you here. We want you to be successful. Here's how it's going to happen." And by every measure, other than the stupid speeding stuff, he seems to be embracing what they're doing. He seems to like what is happening. He seems to appreciate what they're trying to do for him. And he has the best attitude out of everybody involved in this situation in terms of what, how this is being handled. And I don't know why. I don't know why there's this sense of treating him as this, like, almost as if he's being disingenuous. Like, he's smiling and saying all the right things, but secretly behind closed doors, he's super angry and upset and all these other things. I don't think that is the indication from everything I've, in Lane's reporting and stuff like that. He's sort of just focused on the work and trying to do everything he can. And like, I heard this whole conspiracy, again, it was suggested like that the Browns were lying about the sore arm. I bet the sore arm is because he was working hard in that month leading up. And I suspect part of that was sort of slight tweaks in his mechanics that were also, he had been working. So like this notion that, well, he hadn't thrown that many passes, his arm shouldn't be sore. I think that he is, that's only what you see on the practice field. Doesn't cover what else he's doing. And media is quick to point out a lot of the time he stays after practice to keep throwing.
Practice working, throwing the ball. Yeah.
So, I just, the message stuff, it's so tired. They don't think like that.
Yeah. Listen, I don't think the depth chart is interesting to look at, but to your point, you got to put them in some order. I don't think there's any reason that they put him fourth just because that's the easiest order to put him in at this point. Has he been? He has been genuine. I don't think he's being disingenuous at all. And that the idea that this whole, to your point, this conspiracy theory that started when Jimmy Haslam said that he went to bed and didn't think he was going to draft Sanders, and then idiots at ESPN and Bleacher Report took that quote and twisted it into he didn't want to draft Shedeur Sanders, which is completely out of context and just twisting words around. What he meant is they had already taken a quarterback. He didn't expect to take another one, but when they met the next morning, they did. He didn't say he didn't want to take him, but plenty of people want to say that and say that was somehow disrespectful to him, and that somehow this is they're just trying to, hold him down or challenge him. Or it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Like, what? Why? What? For what purpose? But this is all
I think, like most people, Jimmy Haslam assumed that the draft was going to start day 3 and Shedeur was going to be like the first pick of day 3.
Gone. Yeah. I don't know. Anyways.
I'm a big believer that you give the hardest time to the person you believe the most in. You probably had it in your career. Like, they're not handing him anything. He's in essence the second string because the other two guys that are ahead of him are hurt anyway.
Yeah.
So they could have easily listed him as the second string. But it's probably more of a, you're fourth string. You're lucky these two guys are hurt. Keep working. Keep doing the right things. Keep saying the right things. They seem to be putting him through the ringer a little bit. And I think that's the tell that they like him and that they want to give this man a shot. And it doesn't have to be week one because you said Joe Flacco's a pace car. He's been there. Let Shedeur see what an NFL game looks like from the sideline, not from a luxury suite.
Ease him in.
Yeah. I don't know. I took this, and maybe I'm reading this completely the wrong way. You would know a lot better than I would, CC, in terms of how this works. I took this yesterday as, oh, they believe in this young man. They're not, because if they didn't, they could just put him at second string and kind of rush him through. I kind of like this for Shedeur. Am I wrong to think this way?
No, I agree with everything that you're saying. And after what you heard yesterday from Shedeur about why he didn't want his dad to show up to training camp, how could you not love him?
So there's something to what he's saying. I just don't know if I necessarily apply it to this.
Yeah.
There's the idea of coaches should be harder on their best players. They should be the hardest they are on their best players. And the prime example of this is always Bill Belichick. You hear any number of stories. From players who have been in meetings where Bill Belichick will just basically spend minutes on end just absolutely destroying Tom Brady and nitpicking every single possible thing about him.
That's a culture thing now.
It is, but I mean, like that is, but that's what I'm saying is like that is, if your culture is you're the hardest on your best players, and the basic idea is that if you're that hard on your best players, it sets the expectation for everybody else. If they're that hard on that guy, what am I supposed to be? So from that standpoint, yes. Do I think that's necessarily what's happening with Shedeur Sanders here, who's been here 20 minutes? No. I think the Browns are telling this guy, we believe in you. We want you to be successful. This is how we think you get there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree with him. The answer to his dad coming and his dad in the actual interview answering to Michael Irvin, I mean, pitch perfect answer. He outside of the speeding, he has said everything right. He has approached this with what to me appears to be genuinely the right attitude about everything. He gets asked about reps. I'm grateful for every rep I get. I got to be ready for when they come. You know what I mean? Like, I just think that somewhere along the way, if there was a lack of maturity in the pre-draft process on his part, somewhere along the way, it would appear to me, based off of hearing his interviews before and now, a light came on for him that this is his opportunity, and he has been on cue. I answered everything correctly, came with the right attitude, is working by all accounts extra hard on everything. I hope he does really well this week.
Yeah, I mean, look, reps are invaluable. You want to get as many as you can, but the higher you go in this game, the less is done on the field and the more is done in meetings and walkthroughs and all these other things. And that seems to be where Shedeur is really embracing this process and trying to get better. That's why I don't think, not that I'm imagining he sit there and be chirping about reps, but I think that's where he's sort of immersed in trying to improve as much as he can so that when he does get those reps, he can make the most of them. And Wednesday and Friday become a big opportunity to sort of show off. And my worry is that, like, if he struggles, there's going to be people who then blame the Browns for it. Yeah. Or if he's successful, then, the thing's off the rails and we're going to do Deshaun Kaiser all over again, even though Deshaun Kaiser stunk in the preseason and people just ran with it. But like, I just want people, as much as I can, I just plead with people, just let him do it. Let him go through the process because he seems to be totally with it. And that's ultimately what needs to happen instead of trying to skip steps. Because if the situation is what it is because the Browns have Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dylan Gabriel, and Shedeur Sanders. If not for that, they had a more established starter. Let's say they signed Sam Darnold as an example.
Okay.
Like he would be sort of toiling in obscurity a little bit more and doing basically the same things he's doing now, but there wouldn't be a hyper focus on this because there's this thing out there and open competition, granted, that we're trying to go faster than he needs to be. And we're seeing that he needs to take a slightly slower track. That's not an insult. That is 95% of quarterbacks aren't going to step right in and be great or be able to do it immediately. So that's fine. He's on the other track. The question is, how does he handle it? And can he make the necessary improvement? So far, he's handling it incredibly well. Can he start to grow? Can we see that in what he's doing? Are we going to when Friday in particular, when we're playing real football, am I going to see Shedeur Sanders step up in the pocket, or am I going to see him drift back 15 yards and try to throw the ball? Am I going to see him hold on to the ball needlessly, or am I going to see a more decisive player that's trying to get the ball out and making quicker reads? Am I going to see a player who's unsure of what he's looking at times, or am I going to see a decisive player in terms of answers? Like those are things that I think we can, within reason, start to see, and hopefully those are markers for his improvement. Like I know, Lance Reisland's very big on his footwork. Is that going to be better as we see this? Are we going to see, or are we going to sort of see more of the Colorado product where it's a little bit more backyard football and there's some good plays there, but we're seeing some of the things that he could get away with in college that won't work against higher level competition?
Yeah. You're watching the React on the OBR streaming network. Make sure you hit like and subscribe down below. That's Pete Smith. My name is Brad Ward. This next video is from PFT with Coach Jason Garrett on the Browns quarterback situation. Then I promise we'll move on to some other things because I have got some questions about this team and this depth chart, which we're going to get to
right now. How would you be dealing with having 4 quarterbacks in camp? Now, one of them is injured, but let's assume Kenny Pickett's healthy. How do you get your guys ready when you got 2 rookies, 2 veterans, and how do you even begin to figure out who the best one is and to get all of them ready to go if you need them?
The most important thing that you have to do as a coach is you have to create an environment where you make in-house evaluations. You can't let people outside of your building evaluate your team. Mm-hmm. So you pull back and you say, okay, what are our objectives here with our quarterbacks? Where are these guys? And okay, who do we think at this point deserves most opportunities? And you give that guy the opportunity, independent of what everyone else is saying and all the little things that you see about this guy practicing and what he's doing and that throw that he made or whatever. So it's all about in-house evaluations. And you say, okay, where are we? We got Kenny Pickett here for a reason. Kenny Pickett, to me, is the guy who's in the most prime of his career of those 4 guys.
Okay.
So can this guy be our quarterback? I love Joe Flacco. He's an inspiration to me. He's 40 years old.
Right.
Okay, so he might be the short-term solution, but he's not the long-term solution. Kenny Pickett might be.
Yeah. Right.
Playing quarterback as a rookie in the NFL is hard. I know in recent years a lot of guys have done it and done it well, but it's hard to do. So to ask those 2 young guys to come in and say, okay, you're going to be our quarterback right now,
Right.
It seems to me that you have to let those guys prove it to you. You have to give them an opportunity, but it takes a special guy. You draft him in the 3rd round. You draft the other guy in the 5th round. You didn't draft him with the 4th pick of the draft. It's not that kind of a situation. So to me, I'm not in the building, but when you look at the logistics of the quarterback group that they have, it's like, give Kenny Pickett a shot to do this.
Right.
Understand that we have Joe Flacco right there. He might be the best option.
Yeah.
You got to get him ready, and then you got to try to get the young guys going as much as you can and see if they can grab onto it where they deserve more. But the biggest thing is block out the outside world. We got to evaluate this position for our team right now.
Here's the problem, though, and I think this is why they didn't bring Flacco back last year. The fans love Flacco.
Yeah, right.
So if Pickett's the starter, one bounce pass, Flacco, Flacco. And you're going to be hearing that noise no matter how hard you try. It's going to be there from the behind you.
Okay, where did we start?
Yeah, I know.
Block out the noise.
Yeah.
You have to make in-house evaluation.
Okay.
You have to do what you think is best for the team.
Right. So off of that, okay, let's say, I mean, 4 quarterbacks this day and age on a roster is crazy. I mean, we don't see that anymore. If there was one that goes, right, because we had this discussion. I don't know the answer to this either, but we had a discussion on Monday and a little bit on Tuesday, just talking guys, football, whatever. They're not going to be able to squeak these 2 rookie quarterbacks by on the practice squad, I don't believe, right?
No, you can't. You cut them, they get claimed on waivers.
That's where I look at it and I go, I tend to be like you. Hey, Kenny Pickett, there's potential here for them to be something. But if there's an odd man out, I kind of think it's Joe Flacco if they have to cut it to 3. He thinks it might be Kenny Pickett,
listen,
maybe.
I'm starting to agree with you, though, because you can't have Flacco in the building if Pickett's the guy you're going to try to ride with. You can't have Flacco there because the fans love him. It's why they didn't re-sign him last year.
So just how do you see that playing out? I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but it's still just, it's football talk here.
Let's pull back.
Yeah.
Let's pull back. It's the most important position in all of sports.
Right.
Okay, I believe most organizations undervalue the position because they don't have enough quarterbacks.
Exactly.
They don't bring guys into the building. They say, hey, we're just going to keep 2.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what happens if one of them gets hurt, right? You have some young guy who's not ready to be the third, let alone ready to be the backup, let alone ready to play.
Yeah.
Right? So to me, I'm for more quarterbacks rather than less.
Right.
Because things happen. If one of these guys gets hurt, Kenny Pickett's out right now with the hamstring.
Right.
All of a sudden, that changes the dynamic of the situation. I'm also for being really thoughtful on the ages and where quarterbacks are in their developmental stage.
Sure.
I was really fortunate to be in Dallas for 8 years as a player. I thought we did a really good job. Obviously, Troy Aikman's a first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback. He's the guy. But for years, different guys were the backup.
Right.
Steve Berline. Bernie Kosar,
right.
Rodney Peete came in, Wade Wilson came in,
right.
and I'm the third guy all throughout that. And then I got a chance to be the backup. But the idea was, let's create an amazing environment for the starting quarterback, Troy Aikman, right? First and foremost, let's have a veteran backup who could play. I can remember talking to Ernie Zampese, trying to get my opportunity to be the backup. And Ernie Zampese is one of the great offensive minds of all time. And he said, you don't have enough skins on the wall. You got to prove it to us more.
Right.
So that's why Wade Wilson came in. Wade Wilson played 19 years as a starter in Minnesota, an amazing football player.
Yeah.
Something happened. Wade goes in. He's ready to go play and have this team function at a high level. And now you're bringing another guy along. So being thoughtful with the quarterback position, adding people to that mix is important. So you're balancing creating a great quarterback room with having a lot of guys on board. I think with the Joe Flacco situation, I've never worked with Joe. I admire him from afar.
Yeah.
I think he would do an amazing job. If one of the other guys gets chosen to be the quarterback, he sits there in that Wade Wilson role.
Right.
And if he needs to play, he plays.
Right.
And then you do this to the fans. I got it. We got to give Kenny Pickett, Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel their opportunity to play, knowing that if we need Joe, he's going to be ready for us.
Yeah.
Joe's not going to be a disruptive guy. He's
Not
going to
at
be
all.
someone who's good for the football team and good for the quarterback.
We got to let you go, but I have to ask you this because we talked about it earlier. Would you have taken another quarterback in round 5 if you had just taken a quarterback in round 3? Under any circumstance.
I think that's the tricky one. And there's this thing in football called progress stoppers, right? And you got to be careful about anointing people when they're young. A lot of teams say, hey, he's a young player. We got to eliminate all the obstacles in front of him we don't want to stop his progress, right? Oftentimes, I think teams do that too quickly. The guy needs to earn the opportunity. Having said that, you have to be careful about that dynamic of 2 rookies competing against each other when the starting role isn't established.
Right.
Are these guys ready to do that?
Yeah,
I think that's a tricky dynamic for me.
The human element, instead of playing draft value, analytics, all of that a little bit.
Yeah, the other part of it, though, is, and I talked to Howie Roseman about this, he said for years we drafted quarterbacks, Kevin Cobb, some of these other guys who they drafted them high,
right.
And if it doesn't work out, they have value because quarterbacks have value, and they trade them and they get picks and all that. So there's an element here that you're playing a bigger game than that. But first and foremost for me is the quarterback room. Let's get the quarterback room right and those dynamics right. And I think it's tricky in Cleveland right now.
Thank you so much, Coach.
All right. Do you think, in retrospect, that the Browns should have just not called it an open competition, still treated it the same way, still gave rookies the same reps? Was it a mistake to call it an open competition because it gave, it was never really realistic that these rookies be ready by week 1 anyway. So was it a mistake to call it an open competition?
No, for one thing, obviously the Pickett thing still would be a factor. And then if it played out like this and they didn't call it an open competition and suddenly Dylan Gabriel's taking all these reps that Darrell Ryder's complaining about, everybody would start to try to make this into some big story that Dylan Gabriel is going to, usurp the starting job.
They're making up stories anyways. They're making big stories about nothing anyways.
Which is all the more reason I'm not worried about calling it open competition. That's fine. It allowed them to, because, the other part about this is if it's just sort of allowed them to give Joe Flacco time off and not sit there and, even if he was out or not taking, reps in a particular series and not going, why isn't your starting quarterback practicing all this other stuff? Even though it was still been entirely reasonable for him to take periods or days off because of his age. But I just think it just gave them freedom to sort of operate exactly how they wanted to. I mean, I don't think it's a huge difference either way, but it just sits there and go, hey, we're going to operate the way we are and just let it play out. And at least in that case, it gave, for all the people who are saying Shador is not getting a fair chance. Well, I mean, he has a chance. Dylan Gabriel has a chance, and maybe I'm going to come back next Tuesday and Shador's going to have, I'm blown away by what Shador was able to do and sitting there and go, man, I want to see him against, the first team, whatever, because I was just so overwhelmed with what he did. I don't want to. Again, I'm very sure they're going to draft a quarterback next year, but nevertheless, I don't want to eliminate the possibility that he could be everything that the people who love him and adore him and think he's the next thing can be. I want him to have that opportunity to prove it, to continue to prove it, and see where we end up. So I don't worry too much about that part.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So the Browns came out with their unofficial depth chart. I figured going into, and as you already mentioned, it doesn't really mean anything, right?
I'll be honest. I haven't even looked at it because of how little it matters to me.
So let me, Alex Wright was listed as the starting defensive end over Isaiah McGuire. Doesn't matter.
No. In fact, those guys there's a world where those guys could end up being halves of the same coin. Alex Wright being more of a pass rusher, Isaiah McGuire being more of a run defender. We shall see. But ultimately, again, if I just go based on off last year, Isaiah McGuire should easily be the starter at that job. And reportedly, according to Lane, he's ahead. So I don't put much stock in it. But my hope, if I'm sitting here looking at this going, my immediate reaction to you saying that is, and what I've heard is that Isaiah McGuire was really, really good last year. Obviously, there's still room for him to grow. But if he was still really good last year and is still in that same vein and playing, basically not unlike he did last year, and they like Alex Wright this much, hopefully that means that they've got two guys who are really good.
Yeah, absolutely. Cameron Smith, who has been repping with them, was further down on the depth chart. Or that's not his name.
Who? Cam Thomas? My dude, Cam Thomas?
Cam Thomas, yeah.
Where's he at on there?
He's further down.
Yeah.
And here, I can bring it up for you.
I don't care.
But he has been, when I was there twice, he was repping with McGuire and the ones and twos. He was kind of like in the mix. All right, this is the offense. So, a couple questions. DeAndre Carter is listed as backup wide receiver to Jamari Thrash here. He's also listed on this. It's hard to see this thing because it was so small. But he's also listed as the kick returner and punt returner on here. I see no reason why DeAndre Carter should make this roster at all. Why? Why would he make this roster? You need all the good receivers that you can get, and they need to stop. I don't know why they think they need to have a returner, or they have the luxury of having a returner only specialist in a game where the kickoff is obsolete, basically, and you can get anybody to punt return. I mean, Jerome Ford has proven to be a good kickoff returner. I mean, you have other guys on the roster that can do this. I have no idea why DeAndre Carter is going to make. If he makes this 53, I'm going to be mad.
Until they have enough receivers for this to be a factor, I don't care. They need 6 guys who are better than what DeAndre Carter can bring to return. Either they need somebody else who can return better than him, or they need a receiver who can do both. I have guys I like in the upcoming draft. I've mentioned Mekhi Lemon from USC who can return kicks and is a talented wide receiver. That is ultimately where I'd like them to end up. But until they have enough receivers for it to be a factor, it does not bother me.
Okay. Well, with that thought in mind, let's go back to a different slide then. Out of all of these, out of the other guys at wide receiver, is this the right page? Yeah. Gage Larvadane, or whatever his name is.
Yep.
Hold on.
Gage Larvadane, Keyshawn Johnson, Luke Flourier.
I don't want to miss anybody.
Cade McDonald.
Cade McDonald, Keyshawn Johnson, Chase Cota now.
Chase Cota.
He's the 6'4" guy. Luke Flourier, Gage Larvadane, and then that's it. And then DeAndre, I throw DeAndre Carter in there, Caden Davis in there. So right now I have, in my opinion, I have Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, Jamari Thrash, and Deontay Johnson on this roster. Are you willing to put Deontay Johnson on this roster? He's been good.
Yes. Well, I mean, until he, I've said all along, like Deontay Johnson could disappear tomorrow,
implode at any time.
But no, I think he's doing well. Like, I've debated writing about this, that it's like time to have that conversation about what this means. Like, what can he be? And
yes,
I haven't gotten to it in the way that I want because I don't know how to frame it. But like, basically the answer I have come up with for myself is if he can match the dude they had last year who's now in Buffalo, you're going to be thrilled. If you can get that from him, then the 600 yards.
Yeah. It's huge
Success. More than that, overwhelming success. That becomes a massive get. Less than that, it's still a flyer type move. But like I look at this and I sit there and I go, I'm right there at that 600 yards is sort of my benchmark for this really worked well given what he's replacing and in that type of situation. So I agree with your 4. I still think that DeAndre Carter is going to be 6. So it's a question of 5. And
oh my God.
And
you really think he's going to be 6? Like, because they've been working out. I guess my point was they've been working out Gage, Flourier, Caden Davis, McDonald. They've all been working out in the kickoff game.
No, they have depth.
So, like,
no, I don't.
One of those.
I would be
guys
shocked. Look, it'd be a great
both.
tremendous outcome if the Browns get to cut down day and they decide. I'll use Gage Larvadain as an example because he has return experience and he's fast. Okay. Let's say that the Browns decide that, man, they really love Luke Flourier and the Gage Larvadain, who's made a bunch of plays from different quarterbacks. And the catch he made on that ball from Flacco in the corner was unbelievable by all parties. Even Cam Mitchell's coverage was terrific in that play. It was just the perfect ball, perfect catch, all that stuff. If they decide that that Luke Flourier and Gage Larvadain are so good that they have to cut DeAndre Carter and eat the money they guaranteed him, then that's a great outcome.
That's not the situation I see. I see them keeping one guy and having to. They've got to add somebody from another roster, Pete, at cut downs. That's where DeAndre Carter gets cut. So one of these guys has to be able to return.
Well, I still think that's depth, and I still think you're overestimating what's going to be available on waiver claims. I think it's, we'll see if there's a swap of some kind before guys are cut down from one of these teams like Green Bay that's got extra guys or something.
I could be wildly overestimating what gets cut down and what's available. And they could still be better than what we have at 5 and 6 on our roster.
Maybe it's very difficult. Like straight up, it's really difficult to have a barometer for how good this crew of undrafted dudes they've got at wide receiver is. And until those guys are like torching the Brown or making plays against the Browns starting defense, it's going to continue to be that. Or Fred's going to be reporting tomorrow that, throw out a name, Keyshawn Johnson is torching the Carolina defense. You know what I mean? Like, or we're going to find out next week that, that Luke Flourier is killing the Eagles defense or something like that. Or preseason. I mean, those guys are all going to get a ton of work in preseason. I think one of them will make the team. Potentially. I think more likely at this point, if somebody else from another team is coming, it's to replace all the undrafted free agent guys. DeAndre Carter remains, and they keep a couple of those guys in the practice squad.
To just return kicks?
Yes.
To fair catch kickoffs?
I've laid out my best case. They're so good that they decide we're going to eat the money they guaranteed DeAndre Carter, but I don't think that's going to happen.
It's insane that they want to keep him on the roster. Do you agree with me?
Until they get, and this is something they've obviously got to get to, until they get a better overall wide receiver room where one of those guys is a threat as a returner or a running back that does it or somebody else, they put a higher value on special teams in the return game than you do. And in some cases I do because I am often frustrated by some of their choices in that regard. But nevertheless, I think that's how this is going to play out.
It also is extremely frustrating that they value guys like their sixth corner is just a special teams dude, but can't cover a door.
Yeah,
we're going to keep him on the roster because he's a good gunner. Come on, you've got to have a better roster than that the sixth guy can actually cover. Because guess what? That guy ends up playing.
Yeah, that part I disagree with, because if you look across the league, you're going to see a whole lot of those guys.
That's fine, but they've ended up playing like the last 3 years.
Yeah,
and they can't cover anybody.
Yeah, that's going to happen, and you have to make the best of it. And Mike Ford heroically made the interception against Lamar Jackson and helped the Browns win that game. He also decked him before. He also gave up an easy touchdown to Odell Beckham. Nevertheless, he did that. He did deck Lamar Jackson and did intercept him. But yeah, I mean, that's life.
You don't think that teams can acquire 5 good corners and one of them can be a gunner and a good corner?
But 6 is the number.
6.
And no, because 32 teams want 6 good corners.
Wow.
32 teams want 5 to 6 wide receivers. It's a supply issue.
You're just never going to be able to convince me that you can't find a guy that can do both.
Yeah, well, that comes down to effort and investment, which is, and we look at Green Bay and we say Green Bay has all these guys, but like they put in the effort to acquire those guys with draft capital and everything else.
Yeah. All right, so interesting development when I was at camp. I wanted to ask you about Chris Edmonds, like never left the field at safety. Now, Delpit was out. But here's my hypothesis, and I want you to tell me if you agree or not. I think that if Cam Mitchell and Miles Harden struggle, or even if they don't struggle, I think they are going to tend to play, I guess, what it's not really a dime, what would be like a big nickel, 3 safeties with Jenkins as your slot coverage.
Okay, that's a lot in terms of how much I have to address on this. So here's where I'm at on safety. Right this second, I think the Browns are going to keep both Chris Edmonds and Donovan McMillan. That is where I'm sort of
on the roster.
On the roster.
Okay.
I think it's more likely that DeMonte Casey is the 5th guy because he can play that slot role more like a slot. As opposed to Rayshawn Jenkins.
Then Jenkins can?
Yes. I know Rayshawn Jenkins has a lot of experience, but athletically and intelligence-wise, I'd be inclined to bet on Jenkins, or I'm sorry, on Casey in that regard. Also because he is able to then back up at free. Now I could be dead wrong, but I wrote about this today. I am inclined to believe the Browns. One, they really, really like Ephraim Banda, who has been an excellent safeties coach to this point, to the point where I think teams are going to start sniffing around him for defensive coordinator jobs. He may not get one, but they are interested in seeing how far he can go. They obviously had Ephraim Banda come in, and he coached up D'Anthony Bell and Ronnie Hickman in the 2023 season when the Browns lost Delpit Thornhill and Roddy McLeod, and finished up with those 2 and one other dude whose name escapes me, who I actually really liked. And they, obviously did not do well in the playoffs, but were good the rest of that run. Ronnie Hickman played well. D'Anthony Bell was effective in the role they utilized him in. Chris Edmonds, coming out of Arizona State, physically talented, huge. Didn't consistently play to his speed, and needed to continue to get better in terms of instincts, angles, finer points of the game. If Edmonds is improving and getting better, which it sounds like he has, I think the Browns are inclined to keep him, that he's sort of the next guy that they figured out that Ephraim Banda has been able to develop. I think it's a similar situation with Donovan McMillan. Now, having said that, if one of them is likely to be waived because they're just not there yet, I think it would be Edmonds because they've gotten him to the practice squad before. But I think the Browns are inclined to go younger at that spot and just let Banda keep coaching dudes up. Because, look, obviously so much of this depends on how Banda and the team evaluate them in terms of long-term value.
Ronnie Hickman.
Yes, but like Donovan McMillan is a really good athlete.
Yeah.
With size you want at that position. And again, another guy, he's around the
Same
football a
with
lot, but
Edmonds.
can he get better at the finer points? Can he develop better instincts? Can he just play smarter? If Ephraim Banda sort of unlocked whatever it is to find guys that fit exactly what he wants and can put them in a position to be effective, those guys have more value to the Browns than 31-year-old DeMonte Casey theoretically would, and Rayshon Jenkins, who's I think late 20s, because those guys are temps in that scenario. They're stopgaps for a year potentially, whereas Edmonds, and McMillan have a longer term value. To your point about what will dime look like, or that look, I could see a scenario where it is 3 corners, 3 safeties. To your point, we'll see who that works out to be. There's a world where I without being like there and able to watch practice tape, there's a world where like maybe Casey becomes the free and Hickman becomes the slot or something. I think it's more likely that Hickman stays free and Casey becomes that slot, or the Browns feel really good about who they've got at corner, in that Miles Harden, at least physically, has the ability to sort of straddle the line between corner and safety. But I'm more inclined to think it will be 3 and 3. To your point, it's just a question of which guy earns that third spot. I'm more inclined to think it's Casey, but I'm not like committed, like dyed in the wool believing that's going to be the case. If Rayshon Jenkins is better, he certainly has more. I mean, Rayshon Jenkins got about 30 pounds on DeMonte Casey, for example. That's where I sort of worry that he might be too big and sort of unwieldy for that job, but I could be wrong.
He's done it a lot in his career. That's the only reason.
Yes,
why.
he got both guys have a lot of reps at both at that job.
Yeah, and then so I think that you'll see them at times go 3 corners, the dimes, true dime, 1 linebacker, 3 corners, 3 safeties. But as Schwartz admitted in his press conference earlier this offseason, they are a heavy 3 safety team, and I think to combat what may be a lack of, this is just my perception at this point, and I could be wildly wrong. What they may find to be a weakness or that they can't fill if Cam Mitchell or Miles Harden doesn't step up in that role, they could just call it a big nickel and use either KZ, to your point, or Jenkins in that role more than, and play with 2 linebackers on the field and just play it as a big nickel, then relying on Harden or Mitchell, because I guess it was a weird drill they were doing. It was like 50. They were going at like 25%, and it was like maybe it was like 4 wide going against like 4 wides. So maybe it was like end of game scenario stuff, right? But like they kept switching in and out, and when they were switching in and out, it was Mitchell coming off the field and a safety coming on. And maybe that's just one scenario, but it was just, I remember like kind of earmarking it. And the other thing, and once again, I already talked about this, is yes, McMillan was out there a lot, but I mean, Edmonds didn't leave the field one time. He played with the 1s, the 2s, and the 3s all practice long.
The other reason I believe, Jim Schwartz sort of talked in terms of Cam Mitchell or Miles Harden. It's basically a foregone conclusion. One of those guys is going to end up in that job. But the other reason I think Edmonds and McMillan are very good shots to make this roster is because they both have special teams experience. And I think that's always going to work in your favor. But yeah, that we'll see if I end up being wrong on that. But like I said, I think they would really like to be in a position to be able to keep both.
So at corner, then what's this room look like without Emerson, you think?
So this is really interesting because they've got Greg Newsome and Denzel Ward, Cam Mitchell, and Miles Harden. And when you listen to Jim Schwartz talk about, it's a foregone conclusion that's either going to be Mitchell or Harden, it certainly sounds like those two are going to be on the roster. And then you get to fifth and potentially sixth. That becomes a little bit tougher. I'm not sure that one of those guys isn't currently on the roster yet, that we will find somebody else that is sort of added. But I think Lamarian James is going to end up being that guy. And I took some time to sort of look into him.
Yeah.
He is a Mike Hilton style of prick.
Yeah.
He's never done it this way. So so Lamarian James has always been an outside corner. He was an outside corner at James Madison, and then he transferred and was an outside corner for TCU. He's 5'9.5".
Yeah. They were giving him reps.
So yoked up. He looks taller. He's like 193, 194 pounds, and he looks jacked. And he plays that way. And he's an aggressive tackler. And again, another guy with special teams experience. He also has return experience. If you're trying to win from that angle.
He's fun.
But I can't help but think that is sort of their long-term vision for him, that he can't be Mike Hilton, because for all the things you can say about Greg Newsome, he's not that hard-ass guy who's going to play in the slot and go blow up a running back in the backfield. When I say Mike Hilton, everybody sort of knows what you're expecting. I think Lamarian James has the ability or the body type, mentality, and speed to be that dude. If he can put it
plays
together,
with that
edge. There's a part of me that thinks Jim Schwartz is like, I've got something in here where I'm going to find this guy as a missile out of the slot to blow things up, either blitz, and then also be a strong slot corner. Now, my only hang up with Lamarian James as a slot guy, did not love his athletic testing in terms of agility. But ultimately, if he's strong enough, can get hands-on and sort of fight that way, so be it. You go back to, how much money did they guarantee Lamarian Mellon? And I would not have thought this until Martin Emerson got hurt. But increasingly, I think Lamarian James is going to end up making the roster.
Yeah.
And then it's just a question of who is that next guy. It could end up being until today, I thought that guy was going to be Anthony Kendall. I don't know what the injury is that he was waived with an injury designation or the timeline on that. I think the Browns, if it's not serious, I think the Browns would hopefully like to get him back, at least on the practice squad. But that is sort of where I wonder if that guy's not currently on the team. I mean, to your point, I hate this, but it might end up being Tony Brown, who cannot play corner. The other possibility, and we'll see, Dom Jones is the outside press corner presence they want. Yeah. But is he good enough? Or is there a world where maybe they can find, Khalif Halasi ends up back on the team. He's currently in Minnesota because he plays that style of press that they got from Martin Emerson. And do they want that type of presence somewhere on their roster to be able to hit, press guys and do that. I'm not sure. So I'm stuck on 5 right there. But that be, my headline there is I think Lemarian James is going to be one of those guys.
Yeah, I agree with you. Me and Casey were kind of watching some of his that he plays with an edge, and I agree with you. And he was getting some nickel reps in and out. You know what I mean? So I think you're right on there. But Nick Needham they have him playing as a single high free safety, and that's it. They don't even have him playing corner.
He has. This is the thing when people when they signed him, and I don't want to bag on Nick Needham, but just injuries had limited him from not doing anything for basically the past 2 years. So he's here. He's gonna have a shot, and we'll see what he can do. But I just sort of looked at it and was like, I don't know. There are people who are like, he's going to make the roster. Maybe he will, but I just don't know where that's coming from.
Only time I saw him out there, he was playing single high safety, and he's listed as safety now too.
There you go. I think he's gonna have a tough time making the roster. In fact, if based on that information, I don't think he's gonna make the roster.
Right. Dom Jones is a big corner, and this kid they just brought in from Tampa, he played a little bit in Tampa Bay. Keenan Isaac is also a 6'2", 6'3" corner with length. So if you're looking for your Halasi prototype, I think it's either Dom Jones or maybe this Keenan Isaac if he's on the roster at all. But those are 2 big outside corners that you have on the roster. It
just feels like the Browns want one guy who can do that thing.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. I personally don't think it's a museum.
Listen, we'll see. He was a guy I loved as a project coming out of college at Colorado State. He's huge. He can run. He's another guy who thrives on special teams. I mean, that's the primary reason. I haven't heard much in terms of his development. If he's been able to do it physically, he has a lot of tools. He's the type of guy I would target as an undrafted free agent. I don't remember where he started, maybe in Denver. And then the Browns sort of got him at the end of the year as sort of a reserves future contract. He's another guy who I'm intrigued by, but I haven't seen enough of him to be have a real opinion. But he's tall, has good speed, can play special teams.
Yeah, Washington. He started in Washington.
There you go. He's Nigerian, which is always a plus. 200
pounds. So
big.
Yeah. All 3 of those guys are big. I feel like all 3 of those guys are vying for the same spot. And if one of them can't fill the role, they'll fill it elsewhere, it feels like. Like they did with Halasi. You know what I mean?
Right.
Anyways, so I wanted to kind of talk through the secondary with you there and the wide receiver room. You just to kind of sum up the wide receiver room, you don't think that the 6th wide receiver from another roster at cut down or waivers is really likely out there in your opinion?
I think if that happens, I think they're replacing the undrafted free agent guy.
Yeah, and then it's still DeAndre.
You're still getting DeAndre Carter.
Well, that's a bummer. They have thoughts on these guys they've brought in at offensive line. Sebastian Gutierrez. Any of these guys, make the team. Lorenzo Thompson.
That's my guy.
That's your guy, huh?
So Gutierrez was on the Browns practice squad last year, and then I think 49ers he's been spending time with, and then they brought him back.
Yeah.
Lorenzo Thompson played at Rhode Island, a small school. He 6'6", 307 pounds, really good athleticism in terms of movement skills, but just not overly powerful. So you got this underpowered small school tackle who's trying to play up to competition, and that's a lot. So the Browns ended up putting him on the practice squad last year. This year, he's been repping at guard, and he's been repping at left guard behind Joel Bitonio, and at one point when Joel Bitonio got a day off, Lorenzo Thompson is in there with the ones. He's the guy. Like, my hypothesis on the offensive line is, if no one gets injured, the 9 guys that you would think, which is DeJuan Jones, Cornelius Lucas, Jack Conklin at tackle, Joel Bitonio, Wyatt Teller, Zach Zinter at guard, and Zinter can also snap, and then Whippler and Posick. Those guys are all going to make the roster. If they decide to keep another guy and make it 10, somebody they just feel like they cannot let that person go, my theory is that player is Lorenzo Thompson. And he's the fact that it seems like Mike Bloomgren likes what he sees in him is intriguing. I'm very curious to see what he can do in the preseason. I'm curious where they put him in the preseason. I'm curious to see if he's exclusively a guard, or, we get down to like the third string, if they put him back at left tackle, because the more things you can do, the more intriguing he becomes. But he's the guy I'm sort of keeping my eye on and saying, hey, if the Browns found a gem out of University of Rhode Island, of all places, more power to him.
Yeah. There's is there another guy? Who's it? Appalachian State. Bucky Williams they brought in. My other question then would be for tight end. And do you think that the combination of either one, Blake Whiteheart, aka Whitebeard, or Brendan Bates, make this roster as tight end 3, or is the tight end 3 not on this roster yet?
It's possible it's not on this roster, but my suspicion is the Browns will want to keep one of those guys. My money continues to be on Blake Whiteheart at this point, because Brendan Bates, big old Y, which is good. He can block, but unless he can offer more as a pass catcher, the Browns just are happy to often default and just put another lineman out there. So Blake Whiteheart does dirty work, but he also has, timely catches on his resume as well. That's where I sort of give him a little bit of a leg up. But I'm curious to see if in these preseason games, are we going to see Brendan Bates catching the ball and making plays that sort of make me take notice of him. But I suspect it's going to be between those two guys. I still lean towards Whiteheart, and some of that is purely because last year, Blake Whiteheart was one of those guys where you got just a little taste and you liked it, and you never got too much of it. So I'm curious if the Browns sort of take that and build on it and keep him rolling, because hopefully, another year, hopefully he got better, and see where we end up. I am not, overwhelmed by Sal Cannella. Maybe the preseason will change my mind, but I don't know if the Browns want yet another space tight end behind Harold Fannin, other than potentially on the practice squad. But we'll see.
Okay. Running back. No word on Quinshon.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to be here for a while anyways. Jerome Ford, Dylan Sampson, and who?
My best guess is they're not on the team.
Okay.
That's not. I'm very curious to see what the UFL kid can do and the other dudes they brought in can do. But it's one of those things where I think the Browns are going to. I've broken this down before. Like, Denver stands out to me as a team that has too many good running backs or too much talent at running back, and they're going to have to let loose somebody unless they've got injuries that allow them to put people on injured reserve. I think somebody's going to get cut loose for waivers that the Browns are going to be able to grab them, add them, and make them the third running back. Seemingly based on everything, because the amount of undrafted free agents I have in a position to make this roster, you'd think they would just roll with the dude from Appalachian State or the kid from the UFL or whatever. I'm still inclined to believe that somebody will cut somebody that the Browns are intrigued by and just go ahead and grab them.
I was surprised to see the Trevion Williams signing. Taua or whatever.
Big.
He's a bowling ball, man. He does not go down. He just bounces off people and just keeps going. So, I mean, if you need a short yardage guy or whatever, yeah, I mean, I think he's fun. He can catch the ball, too, out of the backfield. He's intriguing, I'll say, to say the least. I already like him better than Pierre Strong.
Well, and that's why Trevion Williams is here. He is another sort of rendition of that player that Pierre Strong, who's currently out with an injury of some sort. But again, I'm very curious to see what the is it Amani Marshall and then Tua or whatever the hell his name is. I want to see what those guys can do with the preseason. Changed my mind, but I think if you're just sort of casually watching over the course of the preseason, you're going to sit there and go, man, there's a lot of running backs out there. I think somebody's going to get cut loose.
All right. Last position I want to ask you about is we started here. We're coming back to it. Isaiah McGuire, Alex Wright, Myles Garrett, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. How are you going to carry? Who are you carrying here? Are you carrying 8, just 4 ends and 4 interior guys? 9, 10? You want 5 and 5?
Jim Schwartz is an automatic 10.
Okay. 5 and 5?
You get 10. Yes, 5 and 5.
Does that include Sam Kamara?
No.
Or Jawan Briggs?
Yes.
Jawan Briggs. And Cameron Thomas?
No, but I'm rooting for him.
Who's 5 then?
It's Aiden Huntington at edge. To me, I think Aiden Huntington is a mortal lock, short of something insane happening. And it boils down to this. I think Aiden Huntington is exactly what the Browns want in that position. I think he's Jim Schwartz guy, all those things. I am also convinced that if the Browns were to put Aiden Huntington on waivers, they may never see him again. He would get claimed by somebody and stashed away. I think the Browns are going to keep him. I think some of that is based on the fact that I think they hope that they can get Cameron Thomas on the practice squad in that scenario or trade him. I think they would love to get him, but failing that, I think Julian Okwara or KJ Henry could end up on the practice squad. But I would be stunned if Aiden Huntington is not making this. Of all the undrafted free agents they've gotten this year, Aiden Huntington, even on this talented defensive line, to me seems like the easiest choice. He looks like a dude. He has jumped out in padded practices. He is everything you want in terms of physicality. Can he translate? And there is one play, and the play was completely botched up because the offensive line handled it. And they're trying to, they have him charge up the field, and he just sticks his foot in the ground and bounces outside to execute the stunt. And the guy trying to twist in got completely handled, so he's just done. But just the how light Huntington was on his feet to make that transition at his size is incredible. I just think he is Jim Schwartz. That he is that guy. He's exactly the type of guy Jim Schwartz wants. I don't think they're letting him out of the building.
When Devin Bush is suspended, it's obviously Schlesinger. Is it Schlesinger and then Diabate and then Baker, or is it Baker then Diabate? Who's the first one off the field? Baker?
Wait a minute. Say that again.
So they're in base, right? However you want to.
Wait, what do you mean by base? You mean the actual 4-3?
Yeah, they're in base.
So
and it's in Bush is suspended, so it's week 1, and it's Schlesinger and Baker and Diabate out there.
Yeah,
unlikely.
No, I think in that scenario, I think Diabate is your Sam.
Okay,
but
I can play either one. So
yes,
my question is,
so what I would tell you is, I think there's a strong likelihood
Baker's first one off the field.
If Baker comes out and then Diabate becomes the will in that scenario, Schlesinger ain't moving from Mike. They're locking him in, and they're just saying you're going to do it. Look, if Mohamed Diabate can't do what they need him to do, Jerome Baker is there to be that guy. Jerome Baker is the floor. Diabate is the ceiling, and I think the Browns really hope that he can be that ceiling guy. And then when Devin Bush ultimately comes back from whatever suspension he has, he then becomes the Sam. Diabate is just pure will. Oh, well, I should. Buki Watson should be that guy. If he can't, I don't know what we're doing. But like, that is what you drafted him to be. He needs to be a Sam backer. But yeah, I think I would still say it's Devin Bush at that point.
Yeah, I mean, so when Bush comes back, is Bush and you're going 2 linebackers? Is Bush your starter over Diabate, or is it that up for grabs at that point?
I think the Browns again are hoping like hell it's going to be Diabate. And from what I have seen, it seems like Bush is being used primarily as the Sam when they have that many guys on the field. I think they are trying like hell to roll with Schlesinger and Diabate as those guys. And until Diabate sort of forces them to put somebody else in the field, I think they're going to roll with that.
And someday, hopefully, JOK and Schlesinger, because that would be so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, that's the dream, is that in a year we're talking about, well, Diabate's still here, but JOK is able to come back on the field.
You have any other roster questions? Kicker? Anything else?
Well, the only other thing that sort of jumps out to me as a possibility, however, and I can't handicap this, is long snapper. The Browns signed undrafted free agent. I believe his name is Brent Matisik.
Yep. And
he was Dane Brugler's 5th rated long snapper because, of course, Dane Brugler ranked those. Can he beat out Rex Sunahara? Obviously the former Bay Village wide receiver.
You could always get rid of DeAndre Carter and keep them both.
You could.
Just as useful.
But if Matisse can win that job, then you've got yet another undrafted guy and another rookie that has made this team. But ultimately, they've got to stick with the best guy. It's just Sunahara was brought in because they had the injury situation with Charlie Hewlett. They ultimately move on from Charlie Hewlett. Do they view Matisik potentially as the next sort of Charlie Hewlett, where he can be here like a decade or he was here? I mean, he was the longest tenured player when he suffered that injury. Can Matisik be that guy?
I think that's it, Pete. As we head into joint practices this week on Wednesday and a game on Friday night, what are you most anxious to learn about? Quarterback, or is it something else?
No.
Physicality?
No. That's a big part of it. I want to see Mason Graham and Carson Schlesinger, how they handle themselves in this. Obviously, Carson Schlesinger is the one. Mason Graham is going to obviously rep, but he's part of a rotation. Schlesinger is the guy they want to own that job. And based on everything I've seen in camp, I am wowed by this kid over and over again. And Jim Schwartz is very high on Carson Schlesinger. And he talks about, he's talked about how Carson Schlesinger just made all these mistakes, but he learns from them quickly and has been very good. And he really ups the physicality, which that word matters because that was the big thing that Jim Schwartz wanted in the middle. So that part is really interesting. The Browns were very strong, reasonably strong on the edges last year. Can Schlesinger sort of fix the hole in the middle? And if he can, we're in business and we can really get this thing cooking. So that's the stuff that I'm most interested in. Mason Graham, Carson Schlesinger. After that, it's the Carolina Panthers have a hell of a defensive line, anchored by a very good nose tackle.
Can you run it?
Can you run the ball? Can you displace the line of scrimmage? I have a very bad feeling that they will not. I have a really bad feeling that both offenses are going to suck in this joint practice because both teams feel better about their defense right now than they feel about their offense. But yeah, for this, everything for me is, are we going to get feedback and evidence that the approach to training camp, which has been different, is working and going the direction they want? The Browns are sort of ready to take on that physicality challenge and start to own the mindset, that the type of team they insist they want to be. That is more important to me than anything else. Everybody's going to focus on the quarterback, so be it. That stuff, I'm way more interested in that. And then you can get if you want one more thing, Harold Fannin. I want to see what Harold Fannin does because I've said a lot, and I will continue to say the Browns are going to give him every chance to be a huge part of this offense. It's entirely just about how much he can handle. If he can handle it, he's going to get the ball. He's going to be a huge part of the offense. He's going to make up for not having, as much receiver talent as you would like, give them a different dynamic, cause problems for defense. So those are the three things that I'm sort of interested in.
There it is, folks. This has been another edition of the React. Garage Beers is next with special guest Meredith Kane. Meredith Kane will be with the guys on Garage Beers next, so stay tuned for that. Any other parting words, Pete, before we get out of here tonight?
No, I mean, subscribe to the OBR. Obviously, we've got content rolling, updates, insider details, and the training camp feed has been really, really good this year in terms of basically bringing it to you and putting it all in one place. Other than that, I would say listen to Garage Beers, and I hope that Meredith Kane's Hokies can be better than they have been for the last several years.
There you go. There you go. Stay tuned. Get your beers. Go to your garage. Watch Garage Beers with Mike Keefe and the guys, and Meredith Kane, special guest. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you for watching the React on the OBR streaming network. Hit like or subscribe on your way in or out. Atone for your sins. For Pete Smith, my name is Brad Ward. Have a wonderful evening. We are out.